All right, chapter 3, section 2, energy flow. Key concept number 1, where does the energy for life processes come from? Producers. Without a constant input of energy, living systems cannot function. Sunlight is the main energy source for life on Earth. In a few ecosystems, some organisms obtain energy from a source other than sunlight. Key concept number 2. Some types of organisms rely on the energy stored in inorganic chemical compounds. Only plants, some algae, and certain bacteria can capture energy from sunlight or chemicals and use that energy to produce food. These organisms are called autotrophs. So, producers produce their own food. Autotrophs capture energy from sunlight or chemicals and produce their own food. So autotrophs, they can produce their own food. They don't have to eat anything else. Autotrophs use energy from the environment to fuel the assembly of simple inorganic compounds into complex organic molecules. These organic molecules combine and recombine to produce living tissue. Because they make their own food, autotrophs are called producers. The best known autotrophs harness solar energy through a process known as photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, these autotrophs use light energy to convert carbon dioxide and water into oxygen and energy-rich carbohydrates. Photosynthesis is responsible for adding oxygen and removing carbon dioxide from the Earth's atmosphere. Plants are the main autotrophs on land. Algae are the main autotrophs in freshwater ecosystems and in upper layers of the ocean. Photosynthetic bacteria are important in certain wet ecosystems such as tidal flats and salt marshes. Life without light. Some autotrophs can produce food in the absence of light. When the organisms use chemical energy to produce carbohydrates, this process is called chemosynthesis. Chemosynthesis. Alright, so here's what it's talking about, energy flow. It has bacterial cell, and then you have the hydrogen sulfide and oxygen combined forming sulfur compounds. This is the chemical energy you see that comes out of the deep sea vents from inside the earth. And then the cells make carbohydrates using the carbon dioxide from seawater. Chemosynthesis is performed by several types of bacteria. These bacteria represent a large proportion of living autotrophs. Some chemosynthetic bacteria live in very remote places on Earth, such as volcanic vents on the deep ocean floor and hot springs. Others live in more common places, such as tidal marshes along the coast. Consumers. Many organisms cannot harness energy directly from the physical environment. Organisms that rely on other organisms for their energy and food supply are called heterotrophs. Heterotrophs are also called consumers. There are many different types of heterotrophs. Herbivores eat only plants. Carnivores eat only animals. Omnivores eat both plants and animals. Detrivores feed on plant and animal remains and other dead matter. Decomposers, like bacteria and fungi, break down organic matter. Key concept number 3. How does energy flow through the living system? The relationships between producers and consumers connect organisms into feeding networks based on who eats them. So, the answer is energy flows through an ecosystem in one direction, from the sun or inorganic compounds to autotrophs, who are the producers, and then to the various heterotrophs, who are the consumers. Food chains. A food chain is a series of steps in which organisms transfer energy by eating and being eaten. In some marine food chains, the producers are microscopic algae, and the top carnivore is 4 steps removed from the producer. Okay, so as you see here, the algae, that's the plant in the very beginning, then is eaten by the zooplankton, who then is eaten by the small fish, who in turn is eaten by the squid, and then all the squids eaten by the sharks. So this right here, bottom of the food web, food chain, top of the food chain. Sharks are considered apex predators, being at the top of the food chain. Food webs. Ecologists describe a feeding relationship in an ecosystem that forms a network of complex interactions as a food web. A food web links all the food chains in one ecosystem together. So what you got to remember is a food web is built up of more than one food chain. Okay? So a food web can be a food chain, but a food chain can't be a food web, because it takes more than one chain to make a web. Alright, so this food web shows some of the feeding relationships in a salt marsh community. Alright, so if you look at it, here's the bottom. Here's the bottom of the food chain, okay? So you have the producers, the algae, then you have the decomposers, okay? Now, here's what happens. The decomposers eat off the dead matter, and then therefore the algae, they use the sunlight, and then they make more algae, which is how that happens. All right, then you have your marsh grass, your pickleweed. All right, so then that's the line right here. Here's our herbivores, right here in this area. So these herbivores, which is the mussel, the zooplankton, the sandhopper, the grasshopper, all right, all these herbivores eat the stuff from this level. All right, so this is a food web. All right, so then in turn there, the first level carnivores, which is the herring, the fish, this bird, the shrew, and the mouse, all these are on the same level. Now, when I said apex predator, the marsh hawk is the apex predator because it's at the top of this food chain. Because this can eat any of these consumers right here. All right, and even go down to eating these consumers right here. But mainly, this apex predator feeds on this level right here. All right, and that's why this is a food web and not a food chain, because it's got many different chains put together. So if we were to take and break this apart, you could see the different food chains within this web. Trophic levels. Each step in a food chain or food web is called a trophic level. Producers make up the first trophic level. Consumers make up the second, third, or higher trophic levels. Each consumer depends on the trophic level below it for energy. Key concept number 4. How efficient is the transfer of energy among organisms in an ecosystem? Ecological pyramids. The amount of energy or matter in an ecosystem can be represented by an ecological pyramid. All right. So this is something you need to know. An ecological pyramid is a diagram that shows the relative amounts of energy or matter contained within each trophic level in a food chain or food web. So, ecologists recognize 3 different types of ecological pyramids: energy pyramids, biomass pyramids, pyramids of numbers. Here, this is an energy pyramid. Alright, now, this shows the relative amount of energy available at each trophic level. Only part of the energy that is stored in one trophic level is passed on to the next level. Alright, so this is the bottom right here. See it? This bottom level is the producers. 100%. Alright, so this would be like grass. This would be, it would be a producer, so it would have to be grass or in a field. Alright, so now think about the wild animals we saw. Now, the first level, the ones who eat the grass, the herbivores, they're at this level. Alright, so everything that this second level eats out of the first level, the energy is transferred 100%. Now, this second level, when they eat this first level, they use a lot of this energy to live. When the second level consumers come in and eat the first level consumers, only 1% is passed on. All right, so see, here's how it goes. It goes 100% because all the producers get the energy and produce their own food. So it's 100% at this level. Now, when the second level, when they come in and the herbivores eat all the producers, the energy passed from this level to this level is only 10%. All right, so then when this level eats this level right here, this 10 is divided by 10 again, and it goes 1. So each time you go up this level, your amount of energy is divided by 10. So 100 divided by 10 gives us 10. We divide this level by 10, gives us 1. Divide this level right here, number 1 by 10, gives us 0.1. All right, so that's how the percentages work in this pyramid. The more levels that exist between a producer and a top level consumer in an ecosystem, the less energy that remains from the original amount. Only about 10% of the energy available within one trophic level is transferred to organisms at the next level. Biomass pyramid. The total amount of living tissue within a given trophic level is called biomass. Biomass is usually expressed in terms of grams of organic matter per unit area. A biomass pyramid represents the amount of potential food available for each trophic level in an ecosystem. All right, so this is a biomass pyramid. See, 500 grams of grain, 500 grams of chicken, 500 grams of human tissue. You can see how the biomass pyramid is set up. It says typically the greatest biomass is at the base of the pyramid. Pyramid of numbers. A pyramid of numbers shows the relative number of individual organisms at each trophic level. This one shows the relative number of individual organisms at each trophic level. All right, so see all the grass. So all this grass, this amount of grass, can feed this number of first level consumers, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, you see this? All right, now, this number of first level consumers, which are herbivores, can feed this number of second level consumers, which are usually carnivores. All right, so the only way that this number of snakes can be supported is if there are this many rodents or food sources for it to eat. All right, and the only way that this number of rodents can live is if there's enough grassland to sustain it. All right, and then at the very top, it takes this many snakes to keep this hawk alive. So that's what you have to remember when you're looking at pyramid of numbers. For some ecosystems, the shape of the pyramid of numbers is the same as that of the energy and biomass pyramids. However, in ecosystems where there are fewer producers than there are consumers, such as a forest ecosystem, the pyramid of numbers would not resemble a typical pyramid at all. All right, so real quick, section quiz. You don't have to answer these. We'll go through them, and just know that they'll be on there for you to study later. The main source of energy for life on Earth is C, sunlight. Organisms that feed on plant and animal remains and other dead matter are A, detrivores. How does a food web differ from a food chain? B, a food web links many food chains together. Number 4, in a biomass pyramid, the base of the pyramid represents the mass of C, producers. The amount of energy represented in each trophic level of consumers in an energy pyramid is about 10% of the level below it. And that's the end of this section.